there's much more to Noah Gragson. Let's talk about it.
3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? Todd Brown, That Racing Show. Thanks for dropping by for this pit stop segment. Noah Gragson. Now, that's a name that everybody in the racing world is very familiar with, and you're also familiar with the unfortunate headlines that he made in 2023. And now, the headlines he's making in 2024 with his return to NASCAR racing. Now, there was an article wrote a couple months back about him that was titled Privileged White Male. And this got me thinking, I want to learn a little bit more about Noah Gragson, about his history, about his upbringing. And what I found out was pretty interesting.
When asked why he would like a racially insensitive tweet, Noah Gragson would answer with one word: ignorance. And as you will learn in this episode, it was an ignorance his great-grandfather had worked hard to resolve decades ago. Gragson was suspended by NASCAR in August 2023 for liking a meme which mocked the death of George Floyd. In September of 2023, Gragson was reinstated after completing diversity training. Through the RISE program, Gragson took various steps including visiting civil rights museums. He said learning the stories of lunch counter sit-ins, and how it expanded nationwide, allowed him to envy the bravery of the people who fought for change. What he didn't mention is that included his great-grandfather. Gragson went on to say, walking through the museums they're thinking, man. As a white male, I have a privilege, and what would it be like to be in their shoes and put myself in there? Unfortunately, this isn't the first time the Gragson family has had to deal with a sense of privilege having consequences in recent years, including an accident that caused an unfortunate death. But before we get to that, let's take a look at how the Gragson family rose to wealth and power. Noah's great-grandfather, Orrin K. Gragson, was born in 1911. During the Great Depression he found himself riding the rails seeking work. In the fall of 1932 he caught a freight train out of Oklahoma and 6 days later landed in Las Vegas. At the time he had $2.70 of wealth to his name. He landed a job at the site of what would be Hoover Dam making 40 cents an hour. He married his childhood sweetheart in 1934 and continued various jobs. Eventually in 1937, Gragson became a partner in a location called the Little Secondhand Store. After paying his first month's rent he had a single dime left in the cash register. But after that, selling used furniture became a valuable change which allowed him to partner in a furniture store. After cutting ties with his previous endeavors, Orrin opened his own store. He began to sell television sets before there was even an actual TV station in Las Vegas. But one was being planned and Gragson owned 18% interest in it. It would become KLAS TV Channel 8. In those days local police had the keys to all the businesses including Gragson's, and TVs started to come up missing. An investigation would lead to discovering a burglary ring within the police department that pilfered tens of thousands of dollars from local businesses. This would lead to Orrin K. Gragson getting involved in politics after seeing his beloved town show signs of corruption. This also included city officials buying up all the choice land at would-be intersections for the proposed Fremont West Expressway which Gragson had immersed himself in the planning of. Gragson went on to devise and implement a code of ethics for all city employees. In 1959 he ran for mayor as a Republican and went on to be the longest-serving mayor of Las Vegas from 1959 to 1975. Focusing on corruption throughout the city as one of his targets, he also set out to improve the West Side, home of the city's African American population. Pouring money into the impoverished area he added streetlights and paved roads which gained him support. Gragson hired a black liaison officer and held town meetings in predominantly black West Las Vegas to address concerns and foster racial harmony between black and white neighborhoods. Gragson was known for initiating the Urban Renewal Committee and Human Rights Commission, being honored by the Southern Nevada Urban League with the Founders Award for his efforts to aid minorities.
So as you can see, a pretty cool storied family there with the Gragsons. Pretty neat lineage. And what I think is really cool about this whole situation is throughout everything that Noah went through with his suspension by NASCAR for liking the George Floyd meme, he never used his great-grandfather as a scapegoat. He never said, hey, my family stood with Dr. Martin Luther King. They worked to help impoverished areas, bring black and white families together, to help minorities. He took it as a man. He owned up to it, and he took the steps to bring himself back to the Cup Series in 2024, which I think right there is pretty commendable and deserves him the spot in the Cup Series. Now, there is some tragedy that I touched on very briefly, and this happened with his father, Scott, who was involved in an automobile accident a few years ago, where unfortunately a young woman lost her life. And out of respect to the Gragson family and all the families involved in that incident, I'm not going to go into that because it's not my place. But I think over the last few years, it's probably something that's weighed pretty heavy on the shoulders of Noah Gragson. It was probably really hard to not have his father there to talk to as he was going through all these things this last year, which he touched on when he said it was kind of lonely over the last few months. So I welcome Noah Gragson back, and I hope everybody else does, to the Cup Series because, man, I am looking forward to see what's going to happen with this. Now, as far as being a privileged white male, pretty much got to say, yeah, that's probably the story because he is a privileged male who happens to be white. And in so many cases with race car drivers and NASCAR and Xfinity, they probably fall into the same category because let's just face it, to get into the series these days, you got to come from wealth. You got to come from some privilege. And for Noah to put that label on himself, I think that right there was very humbling. And, man, he's talking about changing, talking about he's very humbled now. But I hope Noah Gragson still keeps some of that fire out there because he's very needed in the Cup garage. And I think it's very cool to see some of the things he does. Now, some of the antics, obviously, are going to be toned back, need to be toned back. But I hope Noah Gragson keeps that fire in him and keeps the fun because he is a fun guy to watch and a hell of a talent. And I'm really, really interested to see what he's going to be doing in this 10 car. Now, as always, I want your input here because I think this story is really cool. And one of the other things I want to touch on here briefly is, his family comes from real estate and politics. They're very wealthy, very much in the real estate business in Las Vegas. And at any time, Noah Gragson, through this whole situation, could have said, you know what? I'm jumping out of the public spotlight. I'm going back over here. I'm going to sell some real estate. I'm going to get rich off of that. But he didn't. No, he's a racer. He wanted to be in that race car. And that's really neat because his whole family was not from racing, but he loved the sport. So welcome back, Noah. But anyways, want to know how you feel about this. Do you think it's a cool situation? He's got a second chance. Do you think he's going to be really competitive in that 10 car? And what do you think about his great-grandfather? Man, that story, I had to do a piece on it because I love history. I found that really, really interesting. But anyways, if you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. Busch Clash coming up this weekend. Man, I'm excited for the whole season. A lot of new people and new cars, a lot of questions. We're going to talk about it all year long. So hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and hope everybody out there is having a great week. As always, we'll see you at the checker flag.